Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back today on a special Pigskin Mafia podcast. Week 10, Week 11, Week 10 recap and Week 11 predictions. And not only that, we have the CFP rankings this time. We're going to go over the CFP rankings, and also we're going to go ahead and talk about the fucking Heisman odds. But just to hear a little bit of this sweet, sweet song by SGF Kurt. Shout out to Kurt.
They notice every time when I walk up in this bitch. Also walk up in this bitch. Keep my clock up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pigskin Mafia podcast. This time, we're going to be talking about college football. Not just college football, the college football playoff rankings, week 2, but we missed week 1 last week. I wanted to do the CFP rankings tonight and do the predictions for week 11 tonight because it's better to do it that way, right? And also, I'm also going to be doing a Heisman contenders odds or rankings for me anyway. My dark horse will be a different player each week. You might not see much movement each week as we go along the Heisman contenders. But expect me to make a lot of movements in my CFP top 25 rankings. So right now I'm actually just finishing my predictions now, but we're going to go ahead and talk about week 10 recap real quick. So the recap, we're going to go ahead and start with the University of Texas coming off a much needed victory against a very tough, very physical Kansas State defense and offense. Bijan Robinson having another great game. And, it was a phenomenal performance in the first half. Second half, again, we did not score. You know, this was a very interesting stat that I didn't know about until tonight. Texas hasn't scored more than 2 touchdowns in the entire second half of each game. So 2 touchdowns and multiple field goals. That's not a whole lot of points in the second half. The team that you're about to face, they're not a first half team. They're a second half team. So you have to prep for that. And one thing I did notice in this game, Texas was struggling with trying to get on the ball when the ball was on the ground against Kansas State. Quinn Ewers looked good. Bijan looked good. Roschon had he did get a fumble. He did fumble the ball once. Beautiful play by the defender that time, and man, that was a hell of a punch to the ball, and kudos to that guy, you know. And it was just a chess match in the fourth quarter, man. And good win for the Longhorns. And speaking of Texas' opponent, TCU. Notice I didn't say the score because I didn't have the score for the Texas. I should know the score because I was watching that game. 34-27 was the final for Texas and Kansas State. But we'll move on to the TCU Horned Frogs taking on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Another good matchup between these two. They seemingly usually have good matchups against each other. Texas Tech was up 10-7 in the first quarter. Then TCU was leading at the half, 13-10. Then Texas Tech was up 17-13 in the third quarter, and then TCU just imploded in the fourth quarter. That is their bread and butter. They just find ways to win. And Max Duggan, 12 for 23, 195 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Keandre Miller, this might be one of the best running backs that we'll play against next week or this week here. Keandre Miller, 21 carries, 158 yards, and 1 touchdown. But he's about to face the best run defense in the Big 12. So that should be an interesting matchup. And then Tay Barber, 3 receptions, 62 yards. Morton, he got knocked out early, so seven completions out of 10 attempts, 79 yards, 1 touchdown. Valdez had 3 carries and 71 yards. Not a whole lot of carries. And then Bradley, 2 receptions, 54 yards, and 1 touchdown. TCU ends up winning 34-27. They were up 34-17 with 5 minutes and 46 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Tech's Tyler Show gets in for a touchdown and makes it 34-24. But TCU wins. Hell of a job in the fourth quarter by the Horned Frogs, but that's their bread and butter. They love to play in the fourth quarter. They like to. It's like filling out. It's like a filling out process during a boxing match, and then the fourth quarter they land the knockout punch, and that's what they did to Texas Tech, and that's what they've been doing to every opponent that they've played. And Texas is a first half team. And if I'm TCU, I'm focusing on how to neutralize and try to pressure Quinn Ewers, how to neutralize Bijan Robinson, and how to double up on Xavier Worthy. I'm not saying that just to double up on Xavier Worthy to open up possibilities for Jatavian Sanders and Jordan Whittington and all those other guys. I'm just saying it's going to be a fun matchup. And Sonny Dykes is a hell of a coach, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he did wonders over there at SMU, and he's doing wonders right now for TCU. Pretty much seeing a TCU squad that we haven't seen in a while. So hats off to Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs thus far in this season. Next game, I took an L on this one. This is my first prediction I got wrong. The Oklahoma State Cowboys, okay, they have been on a drag as of late. Coming off of a 48-0 loss to Kansas State, the team that lost to Texas this past week, faces off against Kansas State rival Kansas Jayhawks, who have been really impressive this year. Well, the Jayhawks did it again. 37-16 over the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I don't know what's going on over there with Oklahoma State. After that Texas win, they just been lackluster in the last 2 games. I don't know if it's got to do with injuries. I don't know if it's got to do with inconsistent coaching, play calling, but Mike Gundy's got to get that figured out. But Kansas, man, they're a scary fucking team, man. Bean, he is possibly one of the best backups in the Big 12. And it shows that Spencer Sanders didn't even play. It shows that Rangel came in 27 for 40, 304 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So Kansas defense came out to play. And Bean, 18 for 23, 203 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Neal, 32 carries, 224 rushing yards against that Oklahoma State Cowboy defense, and 1 touchdown. And Neal gets 6 receptions, 110 receiving yards. Altogether, he has 334 yards total, all purpose. That's unbelievable to me. I don't know how Oklahoma State's defense can just give up 334 yards, just one player alone in that game. One player alone in that game, and they gave up 334 yards. Which brings the question, how the fuck did Texas lose to this Oklahoma State team is beyond me. But hats off to the Jayhawks winning their sixth game, and they are now bowl eligible for the first time in quite some time, man. Since 2008, I believe. Next game, we're going to talk about the UCLA Bruins taking on the Arizona State Sun Devils. And UCLA wins 50-36 in a somewhat of a shootout. And DTR, I mean, this guy is unbelievable. He would be up in my Heisman contenders if he would stay consistent as far as big play abilities in the games that mattered. But DTR, 13 for 20, 169 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Burgoy, 38 for 49, 349 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Allen, 11 carries, 137 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Bobo, 3 receptions, 64 receiving yards. Valladay, 20 carries, 92 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And Valladay again, 10 receptions, 89 receiving yards. So right there, that's 181 all-purpose yards by Valladay. Again, I don't know how you could give up that many yards on one single person. I mean, Xavier Valladay was just having a hell of a night, and Arizona State brought the fucking fight to UCLA in the fourth quarter. So shout out to the Sun Devils for, even though they're having a bad season, they are playing tough. I will give them that. Next game, another Pac-12 matchup, Utah taking on Arizona, and it started off with a 28-10 lead at the half, and then Utah just continued to just bring the hammer down. Delora for Arizona, 10 for 20, 159 passing yards. Cameron Rising, 13 for 25, 151 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Jaquindon Jackson, he was a Texas Longhorn before he transferred over to Utah. 13 carries, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. And Wiley, 6 carries, 64 yards. McMillan, 4 receptions, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. And Veely, 5 receptions, 57 yards. 45-20, Utah wins. Next game, we're going to talk about Illinois just losing their composure in this game, and they took a crap on me in this game. Michigan State, after losing quite a few idiots on that team, they managed to win this game. Michigan State wins 23-15. Peyton Thorne, he threw 19 for 29, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Tommy DeVito, he had 25 for 37, 288 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Brown had 33 carries, 136 rushing yards, and no touchdowns for the Fighting Illini rushing offense. Williams, 5 receptions, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. He got the 2 touchdowns that Tommy DeVito threw in that game. Berger for the Spartans, 15 carries, 81 yards. Reed, 5 receptions, 68 yards, and 1 touchdown. And I got to say, after losing quite a bit of players because they were stupid and got mad because they got their ass kicked by Michigan, and then wanted to fucking throw helmets at at one another, or not one another, but wanted to fucking throw a helmet at the guy. They got some resiliency. And right now, the Big Ten East looks 10 times stronger than the Big Ten West. Illinois is the leader in the Big Ten West. In the Big Ten East, Michigan State isn't even in the conversation to be even in bowl contention. So how do you get a 7-1 team and lose to a fucking 3-5 team like that is beyond me. But hats off to the Michigan State Spartans as we move on to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Trademarked the Ohio State Buckeyes. This was a sloppy game. You couldn't really judge Ohio State based off of the weather. But you could tell that this was just a pure running game. CJ Stroud, this is going to hurt his stats, but 10 for 26, 76 yards. Sullivan for the Wildcats, 10 for 14, 79 passing yards. Williams had a phenomenal day. 26 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 receptions, 51 receiving yards. Hull for the Wildcats, 30 carries, 122 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. So Hull beat Williams in carries and yardage. Washington, 6 receptions and 49 receiving yards. This was a very sloppy game. Like I said, all it was weather issues, and Evan Hull scores the first touchdown of the game, and then all of a sudden it was just all Ohio State after that. I thought it was a very sloppy game. Not discrediting the teams that played. It was just bad weather. So hats off to both teams for even competing in that bullshit weather. Next game that I got on here, the North Carolina Tar Heels squaring off against the Virginia Cavaliers. So they barely scraped by. They played at Virginia. And man, what a game this was. Drake May, who is in the Heisman conversation, 26 for 37, 293 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Bryce Armstrong, 17 for 35, 232 passing yards, and 1 interception. Green, 22 carries, 91 yards, and 1 touchdown. Hollins, 16 carries, 75 yards. And then for the receiving yards between the two teams, Downs, 15 receptions and 166 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Wood Jr. for Virginia, 6 receptions and 94 yards. I'm starting to see a little trend that Mac Brown's starting to do here in North Carolina. It's starting to remind me a little bit of the old Texas where it was the early 2000s when Mac Brown was there. They look good this season. They really look good this season. And Drake May, man, watch out for him in New York. So I'll let you know about this guy. He's a phenomenal athlete. Next game, Tulane versus Tulsa. This is a rivalry game in the American Conference. And the Green Wave pull away with the victory, 27-13. It was 17-10 at the half. Still pretty close, 24-13 in the third quarter. And then Tulane kicks a field goal to cap off the win. Michael Pratt, he has 11 for 19, 125 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Braxton for Tulsa, 13 for 25, 146 passing yards, and 1 touchdown. Spears had a phenomenal game. 14 carries, 157 yards, rushing, and 1 touchdown. Prince had 14 carries and just 55 yards. Watts, 2 receptions, 42 yards. Santana or Santa Ana. Oh gosh, Santa Ana. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. 2 receptions, 41 yards, and 1 touchdown. Yeah, I mean Tulane is a team to be reckoned with. But we'll see how they do against this UCF team that is coming in at 22. Next game, we're going to talk about the Penn State Nittany Lions squaring off against Indiana. If I can even find it. Oh yeah, right here. This was what I expected out of Penn State against Indiana. 45-14. Singleton and Allen just dominating this game. Allen with 86 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns and 72 receiving yards and 2 receptions. Sean Clifford didn't throw a touchdown pass, but he did throw an interception. 15 for 23, 229 yards passing. But I gotta say, Penn State looked good in this game, even though it's Indiana. Kind of expected this game to go the way it was supposed to go. But hats off to James Franklin and the Nittany Lions to get that victory. Next game was another L for me, as the Tennessee Volunteers square off against the Georgia Bulldogs. I did pick Tennessee because I thought Georgia was going to have trouble against that pass offense. And I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong. Georgia violated Tennessee. I know it doesn't show it on the scoreboard, 27-13, but Georgia absolutely violated Tennessee, especially in the first half, 24-6 in the first half. Georgia's defense came to play, and Stetson Bennett, who was harassed by the fans of Tennessee. Tennessee is a toxic culture, apparently. But 17 for 25, 257 passing yards, 2 touchdowns passing, and 1 rushing touchdown where he dove into the end zone, hit the pylon. They scored the touchdown, and he got up and said, "Call me, bitch, call me." And so Hendon Hooker did not have his best game. He was harassed all game. 23 for 33, 195 passing yards, 1 interception. McIntosh, 10 carries, 52 yards for the Georgia Bulldog. Wright, 21 carries, 69 rushing yards, 1 touchdown for the Volunteer running back. Now, the receiving yards, Tillman, who just came back from injury the week before, had 7 receptions, 68 yards, no touchdown for him. While McConkey, what a weird fucking name, 5 receptions, 94 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had a fantastic catch against that Tennessee defender. And, man, Georgia looks like the best team in college football right now. We're going to move on because I don't think I have anything else to say about that game. Next game, though, the Oregon Ducks squaring off against the Colorado Buffaloes. And this was a blowout. I figured it would be a blowout. 49-10. Bo Nix has been on the radar as a candidate for the Heisman, as he should. I think he's done a lot better since he's been here at Oregon, with Coach Lanning being there. 20 for 24, 274 passing yards, 2 touchdowns for Nix. Shrout, 17 for 34, 247 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Irving for the Ducks, 11 carries, 120 rushing yards. Hankerson for the Buffaloes, 11 carries, 54 yards. Hudson for the Ducks, 4 receptions, 80 yards. Tyson for the Buffaloes, 5 receptions, 137 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. And not much more to say about that game. That game was an absolute shit show for the Buffaloes at home. But good win for the Ducks. Next game was honestly one of the most exciting games I have ever watched. This has to be game of the year. Alabama, number 6 Alabama, traveling to Death Valley to take on number 18 or number 10 in this ranking, the LSU Tigers, a team that I disrespected earlier this season. I thought I called Brian Kelly a doofus at some times. I thought he was pretty much the same way as Jimbo Fisher, as a guy that steals money from the colleges that he was with before, and pretty much ruining programs and whatnot. But he's proven me wrong. He is proving me wrong. And I got to say, I have a new respect for that man and for that LSU Tigers team. They have really stepped up throughout these last couple of games. I mean, since that Florida State game, they have changed. Same way as Oregon, they've changed, and they play against Alabama. No score in the first half. Second quarter, they held Alabama to 2 field goals, while John Emery gets a 30-yard reception from Jaden Daniels to score the game's first points. And they go into the half 7-6. Then Alabama kicks another field goal. Will Reichard gets 3 field goals in this game, a 29, 36, and a 38. Then Josh Williams gets a touchdown run, and that puts the score at 14-9. Then Roydell Williams gets a 2-yard touchdown for Alabama, but the Crimson Tide don't get a field goal or don't get a 2-point conversion to make the score 17-14. Then Damian Ramos gets a 32-yard field goal for an easy 17-15 score. Then Ja'Cory Brooks, 4:44 left. This was the craziest fourth quarter I've seen this year. Ja'Cory Brooks, 41-yard reception from Bryce Young, gets the touchdown, 21-17, but they failed the 2-point conversion with the pass. Conversion failed. Then all of a sudden, LSU drives down the fucking field. They give the rock to Mason Taylor, and he bulldozes the Alabama defenders. And the score's now 24-21 with 1:47 left. This is familiar territory for me because Texas did the same thing. And I said, this is a big mistake. You never want to leave Bryce Young enough time. He's like Tom Brady with time management. If he's got enough time, he'll be able to score. But the LSU defense, they've been impressive all night. Will Reichard's able to kick a 46-yard field goal, and that will put them at 24-24. They go into overtime, okay? And then Alabama gets the ball first in the first or the only part of the overtime. They get the ball. Roydell Williams gets another touchdown with a Will Reichard extra point. Makes it 31-24. Probably the fastest answer I have ever seen in an overtime. Jaden Daniels gets a 25-yard run. I mean, that kid's elusive. I mean, I've watched him since Arizona State. This kid is unbelievable. He makes guys miss and absolutely makes a beautiful play. 25-yard touchdown, makes it 30-31. Now, Brian Kelly is a bit of a gambler, and he wanted to win that fucking game. I would have done the same thing. And I could not fucking believe this. And The hero was the freshman Mason Taylor from Santa Aquinas High School in Florida. Jaden Daniels rolls out and throws it right there at the pylon, and Mason Taylor makes a beautiful catch, an even better football move to put the ball over the goal line and wins the game for LSU. Holy shit, what a fucking finish. LSU and Auburn have been the thorns of Alabama's side since Nick Saban came in. I believe this is the 6th victory now that LSU has had over Alabama, with Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, and now Brian Kelly. And that was his first victory over Alabama. And he was pretty damn emotional about it. And I don't blame him. LSU has really turned it around this season. And now they're the front runners to face Georgia. Who'd have thought? Nobody thought LSU would be this good. Nobody thought LSU would be even close to being the top team in the SEC West. They still got to win out. That's if Alabama beats Ole Miss and they don't lose to Arkansas and so on and so forth. But I mean, I'm very shocked with how this game went. I knew it was going to be a good game because Death Valley gets loud when LSU's starting to get good. And my God, what a fucking game. And hats off to the Tigers. They're ranked 7th right now. We'll go over the CFP rankings here in a little bit, but what a fucking game. Next game, not much of a good game. More of a we kicked the shit out of you in the second half. First half, Michigan was down 17-14 to Rutgers. And then all of a sudden, the third quarter, they just fucking explode. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, even Cornelius Johnson got a reception, you know? And then it was just 10 more points, and it was just a fucking bloodbath between Michigan and Rutgers, especially in the second half. J.J. McCarthy, 13 for 27, 151 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Blake Corum, 20 carries, 109 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, 3 receptions, 52 yards, and 1 touchdown. Mind you, Donovan Edwards is a running back. Yeah, I'm not going to go over any more about Michigan and Rutgers. Just a fucking blowout. Next game, we got another disappointing loss for me. Clemson. I thought they were going to bring more fight. What the hell happened to you, Clemson? Y'all start Cade Klubnik, who's a 5-star quarterback from Austin Westlake here in Texas. Notre Dame whooped y'all's fucking ass, and Dabo Swinney has to get something figured out. DJ Ugalali, I call him that. That's not his real name, but Ugalali looked la daisy, and also so did Cade Klubnik, you know. But it was bad. It was probably the worst performance I have ever seen Clemson play with Dabo Swinney as the head coach. And Notre Dame is good again. I'm not saying they're back, because saying a team is back is pretty much irrelevant nowadays. Notre Dame is good again. Defensively, they were just fucking all over Cade Klubnik in this game, and they shut him out 28-0 before Will Shipley was able to get into the end zone for the Tigers, and it was just a bad game. 35-14, the Fighting Irish defeat the Clemson Tigers. Two more games before I get into the college football rankings, and that's going to be a fun one to talk about. Wake Forest taking on NC State. This was a good game. I didn't know who to pick in this game. I picked Wake Forest, but at the same time, I was like, NC State, they might be good. But what kept me from picking NC State was losing their quarterback. Excuse me for the yawning. Devin Leary. And Sam Hartman made critical errors in this game. 3 interceptions. He did throw 29 for 48, 397 passing yards. That's almost 400 yards right there. 2 touchdowns. And Morris, 18 for 28, 210 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Perry and Thomas. Perry for Wake Forest, 12 receptions, 159 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Thomas, 8 receptions, 79 yards, no touchdowns. Oh, excuse me. Goodness. The yawn monsters got me tonight. I mean, it was just a back and forth game up until the third quarter, and then NC State got it to where it was 27-14, and then it looked like Wake Forest was coming back, and then 2 minutes and 54 seconds left. Christopher Dunn kicks a field goal, 30-21. And NC State wins, and they move on as a 7-2 team. Last game we're going to talk about is a rivalry matchup. USC did not look impressive. Starting to see why the bowl committee was like, we'll just move them up 1 spot. But USC and Caleb Williams get the victory over Cal. 41-35. Caleb Williams, 26 for 41, 360 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Travis Dye, 15 carries, 98 yards, 1 touchdown. Jackson the third, 5 receptions, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that will conclude our Week 10 recap. So here's the CFP rankings. And I'll go ahead and throw in my Heisman contenders before I make my predictions. Okay. So let's start with the Heisman contenders real quick. My first Heisman contender, I mean, I didn't bump him down or anything. I think this is going to be a guy who will end up winning it after all. I think this guy is athletic. I think he's got real good patience in the pocket, even though Georgia just absolutely violated that offensive line. Hendon Hooker is my number 1 guy for the Heisman Trophy. Whenever they present the trophy, number 2 is a guy that, he didn't have the stats last week, but that was due to bad weather. C.J. Stroud, I think he's a very, very good quarterback. And also with Jackson Smith and Njigba, if he comes back or whenever he comes back, he'll be a big factor for him. And, I mean, those two have – those guys have really good chemistry, and I really like watching them guys. I mean, they were fun to watch last season, and they're fun to watch this season. But now Marvin Harrison Jr. is filling in that void for Jackson Smith and Nick Juba. My third guy is a guy that a lot of people are disrespecting, that are saying, he shouldn't be a Heisman contender, blah, 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 blah. Well, this guy, he's very talented for a running back. He's my number 2 running back overall. I got Blake Corum. He is a very, very talented running back. He's got the speed, the explosiveness, the vision. I mean, this guy is just unbelievable. I think this Heisman class is very talented, but Blake Corum at my number 3. Number 4 is a guy that nobody expected to talk about this season. I didn't expect to talk about this guy, but Drake May, unbelievable season thus far. He could end up being that dark horse candidate to win it, but Drake May. Number 5 is a guy that a lot of people hyped up in the preseason, and they're still hyping him up. Not as much as Hendon Hooker or CJ Stroud, but this guy, he is a talented guy, and that is Caleb Williams. Now, this week's dark horse for me, he's not getting a lot of respect from the Heisman committee. I think this guy is a phenomenal athlete. He's a freak of nature. He can receive. He's arguably the best running back in college football. I mean, I do think he is the best college football running back, and that's Bijan Robinson. I mean, come on, dude. How could you not like his style of play? It's like a strong version of Reggie Bush. I mean, come on, man. This guy is very, very talented, and I would love to see him in the Heisman race. But I think it's because of Texas' record, it's holding him back. But I see him as a dark horse for a Heisman contendership. Who knows? We might see a Heisman moment against TCU. We'll see. And now we're going to talk about the CFP rankings. Now, this was something I wanted to do last week, but I just didn't have enough time to do it. This is week 2 of the CFP rankings. And, man, there was a lot of movement. There's teams that are already out. There's teams that are coming in. And we're going to start from the bottom to the top. So from 21 to 25. Number 25, Washington. Number 24, Kentucky. Number 23, Florida State, making their way back into the college football playoff. Number 22, UCF. Number 21, Illinois Fighting Illini. These 5 teams right here, 3 of them are 7-2, Illinois, UCF, and number 25, Washington. And 2 of those teams are 6-3, Florida State and Kentucky. Florida State's been impressive to me all season long. With a big win over Miami like that, why wouldn't you put them in the top 25? And pretty much the same way with this team coming up from 16 to 20. Number 20, we got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Number 19, the Kansas State Wildcats. Number 18, my Texas Longhorns. Number 17, the Tulane Green Wave. And number 16, the NC State Wolfpack. I feel like NC State is one of those teams that's going to be lingering a New Year's Six Bowl. They're going to wait until they meet up with North Carolina to really show everybody how good they really are. They're doing really well without Devin Leary. But then you look at Tulane, who's been a really good group of 5. They beat Kansas State earlier in the season. But they got a true test against number 22 UCF. And then Texas, this team, they're better than what their record indicates, 6-3. But I think they have a good shot at upsetting TCU this weekend. But we'll have to see what team I pick. Number 19, Kansas State. They're 6-3. Also, they just lost to Texas. They're all right there in the second spot, right behind TCU, who's 9-0 and undefeated in conference play. Then you got Texas, Kansas State, and Baylor, who are 3-3, or not 3-3, 6-3, and 4-2 in the conference. So Baylor plays against Kansas State, a Kansas State team that's ranked 19th, and Kansas State has to travel to Waco. So that's going to be a tough one at McLean Stadium for Kansas State. But this team, I think, should have been in the top 25. But I guess the committee was like, well, let's see what they do against Clemson. I honestly think they should be ranked higher than 20. But Notre Dame gets that number 20 spot. They'll face their rivals, Navy midshipmen, anchors away, by the way. But Notre Dame 6-3. They've really turned it around. Marcus Freeman has really turned it around this season for them. A lot of high expectations this year for him, and then to start out slow after the Ohio State game, I knew they were better than when they lost to Marshall and geez, I can't think of who they lost in that game. But anyway, yeah, after that Marshall game, I was like, man, I'm done with Notre Dame. And then all of a sudden, Marcus Freeman gets them back up and running. And now I'm a believer in Notre Dame again. Now we're going to go and talk about 11 through 15. Number 15, right in front of NC State, which is boiling, making their skin boil. NC State's rival, North Carolina Tar Heels, will be at number 15 at 8-1. They got a tough test to take on Wake Forest, who's 6-3. Penn State will be number 14, 7-2. They take on Maryland at 6-3. Utah, who's 7-2, ranked 13th in the country, they'll take on Stanford, who's 3-6, battling to stay alive for bowl eligibility. UCLA, who's 8-1, they're staying at number 12, but they're going to face a team that's really just out of it. 3-6 Arizona. Ole Miss is number 11, 8-1. They're only lost to LSU, but they have a big test against a Alabama team that lost at Death Valley, and they're playing at Ole Miss in this game. Lane Kiffin, a former coaching assistant for offensive coordinator for Nick Saban. So this is going to be a fun matchup as usual. We'll see who I got in this game. So, number 10, Clemson Tigers, 8-1. They dropped 6 spots after being 8-4 or number 4 in the country last week. They dropped 6 spots after losing to an unranked Notre Dame team that the committee wanted to see how they were, and they got their ass kicked against Notre Dame. So, I think that's a fair spot for Clemson. As they face Louisville at home, Louisville 6-3 and bowl eligible for the first time in a long time, and Malik Cunningham's actually looking pretty good for the Cardinals. Number 9, I predicted this. I said this before the polls even came out. Number 9, Alabama Crimson Tide. The Crimson Tide are 7-2. There are 2 losses to Tennessee, who was number 1 last week, but I will tell you where they're ranked. And LSU, who was the number 10 team in the country last week, they bumped up, but I'll tell you where here in a little while. Alabama faces off against the Ole Miss Rebels at Ole Miss, number 11 Ole Miss. That's going to be an interesting game. I don't think Ole Miss is that good compared to what people think they are, but Ole Miss is really playing against the tougher teams now, so we'll see what happens. Number 8, a team that was number 9 last week, the USC Trojans at 8-1. They'll be facing off against Colorado Buffaloes this week, who's 1-8. Their season's done as far as postseason postseason play. Number 7 is a team that just took down Alabama and their playoff chances, their SEC championship chances. The LSU Tigers. Brian Kelly has really turned this team around. They actually look really good right now. They'll be traveling to Fayetteville to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are 5-4 this season. Number 6, we got the Oregon Ducks, who are 8-1. I had them at number 5 and Tennessee at number 6. But they got Oregon at number 6, the bowl committee does. And they'll be facing off against number 25, Washington. In a very big must-win situation for Oregon. They have an 8-game win streak, and they're about to play against Michael Penix Jr. and the Washington Huskies. Number 5, the Tennessee Volunteers, who just got spanked by Georgia last week. They're 8-1, number 5 in the country. They're going to go back home to Neyland Stadium to take on the Missouri Tigers, who are 4-5, still looking for bowl eligibility, trying to get back into 500. But we'll see how they fare against that Tennessee offense. All right, now we're into the who's in the college football playoff if the college football playoff were to end today. Number 4, undefeated and entering into the college football playoff. At number 4, the TCU Horned Frogs. They are 9-0. They have really done a good job this season of overcoming adversity. But this is probably their biggest test and probably the most meaningful game for them this season, as they take on number 18, Texas, at Austin, where college game day is going to be. It will be a night game, so this is going to be a rough one for the Horned Frogs as they travel to Austin in that game. Number 3 is a team that everybody kind of expected to be up there. I had them at 4 and TCU at 3. And that is the undefeated Wolverines of Michigan. To me, TCU had the more impressive wins because the Big 12 is a gauntlet, believe it or not. Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State are pretty much the top teams in the Big 10. Everybody else is bottom dwellers or mid-tier teams, in my opinion. But kudos to the college football committee for putting Michigan in there. As they take on Nebraska this week, Nebraska's on their last limb. I don't know what to say about that game yet, but I will talk about it after I talk about the last 2 teams, which number 2 is a team that Michigan hates with every inch of their fiber or whatever. And that is the Ohio State Buckeyes, who sit at 9-0. They'll be taking on Indiana this week, a team that Penn State spanked. Indiana's also on their last limb, 3-6. We'll see what happens in that game. Number 1, with the very impressive win, they jump over Ohio State, the Georgia Bulldogs, who sit 9-0, and they look good. But they have a tough test. They got Mississippi State coming in, or actually Mississippi State's playing at home against Georgia, as they are sitting at 6-3, already bowl eligible. Mike Leach will have them ready. So Expect a pretty good game between Georgia and Mississippi State. But that's what I'm here to talk about now. Who do I have winning this game? I got Georgia winning very convincingly in this game in a 20.5 odds score. Ohio State taking on Indiana. I got Ohio State winning plus 24. Michigan versus Nebraska. I got Michigan winning plus 31. So you could see a jump from Michigan to Ohio State. Next game of the week for me. TCU at Texas. A lot of people are going to give me heat for this. I think this is going to be a good matchup. Texas is going to score big in the first half. TCU is going to score big in the second half. Who's going to win the match? Well, hook 'em horns. I am confident in this game because our defense played more aggressive against Kansas State than they did against Oklahoma State. I think Max Duggan's going to have a little bit of trouble against this defense. And that defense is going to have a lot of trouble trying to figure out the key components in this game. We don't just have one or two players. We got a variety of players on offense that they need to watch out for. So I will pick Texas in this game. I am picking Texas to win this game. I just think that TCU has met their match, and this will be their first loss of the season. If not, TCU is winning out. Next game, Tennessee versus Missouri. Man, I got Tennessee winning plus 35 in this game. Oh, by the way, I got Texas winning plus 3.5. That's the odds. Oregon taking on Washington. Now, this game, it's going to be a fun one to watch, but I got Oregon winning plus 13.5. Next game, I got LSU at Arkansas. I got LSU winning plus 10.5. I think Arkansas is going to play tough against LSU, and that crowd's going to be loud, but I think LSU's got everything going good right now. I think LSU's going to win this game plus 10.5. USC taking on Colorado. It's going to be a fucking blowout. Plus 38.5 USC. Alabama taking on Ole Miss. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than the LSU game for Ole Miss. I don't think Alabama's as good as they have been in the past, but I'm picking Alabama to win this game, plus 6.5. Even though they are playing at Ole Miss, I don't think Ole Miss is all that great to begin with, so I got Alabama winning that game. Clemson taking on Louisville. This is a very intriguing matchup to me. Louisville's hitting their stride. Clemson is really slumping down in the last several games. And a lot of people are probably going to question me for this pick. But I got Louisville winning plus 3.5. I think Louisville is going to surprise a lot of people in this game. They are playing at Death Valley, after all, in Clemson, South Carolina. But their offense has not been clicking. Their defense is getting tired because their offense hasn't been doing the job. I got Louisville winning this game. They are riding on a high right now. And I expect the Cardinals to bring the heat to the Tigers. Next, I got UCLA and Arizona. Another blowout here in the Pac-12. I got UCLA winning plus 31. Next game I got on tap, the Utah Utes taking on the Stanford Cardinal at home. And I got to say, Utah has really impressed me over the last several games. I got Utah winning this game 13.5 against Stanford. Stanford does play tough against their opponents, but at the end of the day, Utah is going to hurt them in the second half, I think. So I got the Utes winning that game. Next game, I got Penn State taking on Maryland. This is going to be a fun one to watch, folks. I think Penn State is going to actually do well in this game. Sean Clifford's going to have a pretty decent game, a better game than what he's had in the last several games. But I got them winning by plus 10.5 on the spread. Next game, got North Carolina taking on Wake Forest. This is going to be a close game. Sam Hartman versus Drake May. I love this matchup, QB matchup. It'll be an offensive affair in this matchup. And I got North Carolina winning plus 6.5 on the spread. Next game that we're going to talk about. Got NC State taking on a 2-7 Boston College team. Without Devin Leary, they don't score very many points. Despite them winning 30-21 against Wake Forest last week, I think I'll pick NC State to win by 13.5 on the spread. Next game, on game of the week candidate, Tulane taking on UCF. I think UCF is going to bring the heat to Tulane, and they're going to win plus 10.5. I just think that the talent level there at UCF is much better than Tulane. Tulane really impressed me against the Kansas State game, but at the end of the day, UCF to me is a little bit better than Tulane, and Tulane's getting there. They are getting there. Just wait until next year or the year after. Tulane will be there to face off anybody in the American Conference Championship. Next game, Kansas State taking on Baylor. This is going to be a fun one to watch. It'll be a low-scoring affair. Both defense play good. Offense has really struggled. Despite having Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, I think Kansas State's going to win plus 6.5. Next game, Notre Dame taking on Navy Midshipmen. This is going to be a fucking disaster for Navy, and they will not be bowl eligible once again. Notre Dame will win plus 20.5. Next game, I got Illinois taking on 5-4 Purdue. This is going to be a fun one to watch. I think this is going to be a closer game than what people indicate, but I got Illinois winning plus 13.5. Next game, I got Florida State taking on Syracuse. Both teams are 6-3, and they'll be playing at the Dome in Syracuse. This is going to be a close matchup, folks, but Florida State to me is good this year. I got them winning plus 3.5. In the last top 25 game, number 24, Kentucky, 6-3, taking on Vanderbilt, 3-6. Kentucky's Chris Rodriguez is just going to run over this defense. I got Kentucky winning plus 16.5. And that concludes the Pigskin Mafia podcast, Week 10, Week 11 talks of college football. One thing I will say about this CFP, there wasn't a whole lot of argument on my end as far as where the rankings should lie. I think some teams should have moved up a little more. I think some teams should have moved down. I think there should have been a swap on 3 and 4. But at the end of the day, they know more than I do as far as where teams need to be. And I gotta say, I like these college football playoff committee guys better this year. I really do. So, and it's not because Texas is ranked in the top 25. It's because they're making sense this season in some aspects. So there's a lot of teams or a lot of fan bases that are like, "What the hell? Why aren't they? Why aren't we in the college football playoff? Who has TCU played?" Well, TCU's honestly, there with the SEC, the Big 12 is a tough conference. And you want to compare your resume compared to TCU? I'd pick TCU over Oregon in the top 4. And Tennessee, they beat Alabama. So I have no argument over Oregon, even though I did pick Oregon to go over Tennessee in the top in at 5. But I did expect Alabama to drop down to 9. I did expect Texas to go to 18. I did expect Georgia to go number 1. Ohio State at 2, staying at 2. But LSU at 7, that is a very good thing for LSU. If they could beat Georgia, just imagine a 2-loss team that lost to Tennessee badly beats Georgia in the SEC championship. What would you pick, or what would you rather pick? A 2-loss team that won the SEC title, beat the team that beat them, or the team that beat them in a convincing manner? Honestly, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to make the playoffs. I would love to make the playoffs. I mean, make my own playoff bracket, but I'm not smart enough to. But at the end of the day, we are the greatest podcast in all of YouTube and soon to be Spotify and surrounding apps and surrounding podcasting platforms that we can go on. We are the PMP. Good night, everybody. And I will see y'all next week as we recap and talk about the college football playoff rankings. Goodbye, and good night, Spain.
All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. Doing something different, and I had to switch it up. Turned up in my section, every night we live it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. My chopper hit, my chopper hit, my 40 hit, my 40 hit. I don't care if you let how step, I don't care if you let how rip, I don't care if you let how step, I don't care if you let how rip. I got sauce, I got flavor, getting all this paper. I got sauce, I got flavor, getting all this paper. Plain Jane Paddock on my motherfucking wrist. They notice every time when I walk up in this bitch. Plus on walk up in this bitch, keep my Glock up in this bitch. Plus on walk up in this bitch, keep my Glock up in this bitch. My chopper hit, my chopper hit, my 40 hit, my 40 hit. I don't care if you let how step, I don't care if you let how rip, I don't care if you let how step, I don't care if you let how rip. Doing something different, and I had to switch it up. Turned up in my section, every night we live it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. Doing something different, and I had to switch it up. Turned up in my section, every night we live it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. This shit is exciting. Do it with our right team. My style, they biting. I'm striking like lightning. I'm bagging these bitch. I'm talking my shit. I'm bagging these bitch. I'm talking my shit. I'm about to get on your ass. I'ma just count me some cash. I'm about to get on your ass. I'ma just count me some cash. Doing something different, man, I had to switch it up. Turns up in my section, every night we live it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck.